Please turn to page 21 of the Pecha. This is a short teaching that Kyobpa Rinpoche gave called The Practice of Mahāmudrā, the Life Essence of Dakinis. Page 21. Om Swasti, I bow at the feet of the precious Guru, unequaled and sublime, who has completely exhausted all faults, who is the treasury of all good qualities and possesses the threefold kindness. It is the realized intent of all Buddhas of the three times, past, present, future. It is the essence of the collection of the precious Tripitaka. Originally, the Buddha's teachings were arranged into three collections that is known as the Tripitaka. And three is three. 1, 2, 3. Pitaka is like literally like baskets. So these were baskets that contain three different types of teachings. There were the collection of discourses, sutras, the collection of Vinaya texts, monastic rules, and then the collection of Abhidharma, the higher Dharma. So these are the three baskets. Even though in most other Buddhist cultures, the Tripitaka continues to be the way in which the Buddha's words were organized. In Tibet, they came up with something, a twofold division into what they call the Gangyo and the Tengyo. Gyur is like translated. So Gangyo is the translated words of the Buddha. Tengyo are the translated treatises or commentaries by the Indian masters. And so that's how they divide the Buddhist the Buddhist scriptures that came from India into Tibet. But that collection of Gangyo and Tengyo post-dates Jigden Sumgön. So in Jigden Sumgön's time, there was not yet a Gangyo, much less a Tengyo. So he uses this Tripitaka because it's all over Buddhist writings to say that the Buddha taught, everything that the Buddha taught was organized into these three baskets, the three Pitaka. Then the three Pitakas are also often linked with what's known as the three trainings. And the three trainings is the training in disciplined conduct, Shila, training in meditative stability, Samadhi, and training in wisdom, pristine wisdom, Prajna. And so these three trainings are also linked to the three Pitakas, whereby the Vinaya is the training in disciplined conduct, the Sutras is for training in meditative stability, and then the Abhidharma is for the training in the pristine wisdom. And so the three trainings are linked to the three Pitakas. It is the quintessence of the exalted minds of all the past sublime lineage gurus. It is bodhicitta, the pith instruction through which one will certainly awaken into perfect Buddhahood in this very lifetime or later, meaning or next. So this is in reference to Mahāmudrā. Mahāmudrā is the realized intent, or the realized, like the mind of all Buddhas, is the essence of what's in the Tripitaka, and in the exalted minds of all the past lineage gurus. It is also called bodhicitta. Then bodhicitta has two aspects. So if we speak of this, if we speak of Mahāmudrā, in terms of bodhicitta, it has two aspects, relative and absolute. The great master on the 10th bhumi, who takes birth consciously, the precious crown jewel of this world, together with its gods, is none other than the great Jowa Atisha, the sole divine Lord. So Kyobpa is referring to Jowa Atisha. His oral instructions and the subsequent teachings on the stages for practicing relative bodhicitta condense the essence of the teachings spoken by all Buddhas throughout the 3 times into the stages of the path for the 3 types of individuals. And so the system of guiding people on the path by dividing their potential into what's known as the 3 types of individuals is one of the distinctive characteristics of Kadampa teachings. So the lesser capacity, middling capacity, and the superior capacities. So superior capacities are those who have the capacities to practice the great vehicle, which is to attain Buddhahood for the sake of others. Then what constitutes the lesser capacity is the ability to think beyond this lifetime. So if all our efforts are still geared towards improving this lifetime, then we are not yet, according to Atisha's dividing of practitioners, of Dharma practitioners, we are not yet Dharma practitioners. If we are just focused on this lifetime. To be a lesser capacity, you have to be able to think beyond this lifetime. Since he is the one who is skilled in the stages of training in loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, stages that allow these to arise in the mind stream, there is no need to rely on any other oral instructions or subsequent teachings. Right? So he says, in general, right? In order to practice relative bodhicitta, the great master, the bodhisattva that is on the 10th bhumi, meaning 11th bhumi, they are Buddha. So at 10th bhumi, they are on the verge of Buddhahood, and this is Atisha. If we proceed according to the position of our own sublime guru, it would nevertheless be generally in accordance with the above. So here Kyobpa is probably talking about his teacher, Mahāmudrā. So it says, generally, this is also how Mahāmudrā would teach, according to how Atisha laid out the path. However, it is taught that accomplishment is swiftly attained if one unifies one's mouth and heart with the meaning of the teachings and constantly practices without any other considerations, propelled by lack of dishonesty in body, speech, or mind. Thus, please understand that it is of great importance to exert oneself single-mindedly. So here he's basically saying, insofar as the understanding of, what the path consists of, how to proceed, there's no argument there at all. But in particular, he says, our sublime guru emphasizes the great importance of exerting oneself single-mindedly. And that we lack dishonesty in body, speech, and mind. So meaning, don't be hypocritical. One side we say we want to practice dharma, On another side, we are doing the opposite of practicing dharma. And so to be honest, in the sense of work on it. Of course, none of us arrive being able to do that. That our body, speech, and mind actions all are aligned. It doesn't. Very few would arrive like that. To be honest, in this sense, is to make effort, so that body, speech, and mind are actually aligned with what we say we are practicing. So we should exert ourselves single-mindedly, meaning our body, speech, and mind are in harmony. Practicing in this way without thinking about anything else, you may then cultivate the stages of the great vehicle and the secret mantra Vajra vehicle. With body, speech, and mind fully united with bodhicitta. Therefore, lay out a cushion in an isolated location. Sit in the 5 points of meditation. The 5 points of meditation is Marpa's modifying of the usual 7 points of Vairochana. In this one, if I remember correctly, Marpa actually says, put a cushion. The way that these zafus are designed, Marpa would be in agreement. He says, put something that will support your back is one of the points. And the other one that Marpa emphasizes is putting both hands on your knees rather than the more typical holding the meditation mudra. But either one is fine. But it's just saying in the Marpa instructions of physical posture, he says you put both hands, on your knees. And so often you see Marpa statues or tankas depicting him seated like that, with both hands on both knees. Contemplate death and impermanence, karmic cause and effect, and the faults of samsara, just enough to get a taste of them before then meditating at length, cultivating at length bodhicitta that has previously arisen. So to cultivate bodhicitta that has previously arisen means that you have already given rise to bodhicitta, and now you deepen this bodhicitta. So you should reflect on death and impermanence, karmic cause and effect, and the faults of samsara. So these are three of the now more common forethoughts that turn the mind. And the first one is to reflect on how fortunate to have this human existence that is with the leisures and the endowments. So again, in this early period, still we're in the 11th century, 12th century, what we now consider or think of as standard layout of, a more gradual way of practicing wasn't yet that standard, at least in Kyobpa's time. So then he says, meditate at length on bodhicitta, cultivate bodhicitta. Just as a point of, like a translation point, I'm now doing my best to avoid the word meditate. Meditate is too passive. It's cultivating. It doesn't always work in English. Like cultivate impermanence. Well, you don't need to go with a hammer, hammering everything on your path to cultivate impermanence. So there I would leave it as, meditate on impermanence, meditate on death. I guess you could say cultivate, like, awareness of, cultivate like the reality of impermanence. You could say that, but that's a little clumsy. So there I've left, as meditate. But in more recent ones where it's possible, it almost always works better and communicates more effectively what you should be doing. Instead of like meditate on the idam, right? And that's like on, meaning idam is over here, I'm meditating on. And it's a passive kind of staring at, But that's not what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to cultivate, as in build up the idam, and build up the guru, even to cultivate the guru, rather than meditate on the guru, like there's a guru out there for you to meditate on. It's not. Here it's talking about, build up the guru on the crown of your head, in the center of your heart, wherever. Right? And then when it's, for example, cultivate or meditate on a bindu, right? A drop in the center of your heart. If you use meditate on, it's as if, there's some bindu for you to kind of, like this, meditate on the bumpa, you're like, okay, well, there's the bumpa, so I'll just stare at the bumpa, I'll just put my mind on the bumpa. But if it says, cultivate a bumpa in your mind, then you have to build the bumpa in your mind. And you have to continue to build the bumpa in your mind. Otherwise, the bumpa disappears. Same with the bindu that you meditate on. It's cultivate. Yeah? So anyway here, it says, propelled by this bodhicitta, visualize the idam deity. So the word visualize in Tibetan, it's sam usually, and that could mean visualize, that could mean think even, it includes thinking, it includes experiencing, it includes imagining, so it can mean all of this. So again here, although the word is not gom, it's not gom, but you could also substitute it with cultivate the idam deity. But here it's actually sam, visualize the idam deity, visualize the sublime guru on the crown of your head, engender the perception that the guru is Buddha, and make supplications. And make supplications to the guru. I had a meeting with someone, one of Gajin Rinpoche's students, who is working full-time on creating a archive of Gajin Rinpoche's teachings. Quite an ambitious project. They are trying to develop a model for recognizing Rinpoche's words and turning into Tibetan script. And they have a ways to go because Rinpoche's Tibetan is very difficult. One thing. Second thing, Rinpoche actually would say things and then kind of drop and go somewhere else. So actually, all these years, Ina knows how to smooth out things for people. And so this language model is having a hard time. To start with, his Tibetan is very thick accent. Very few people can understand. Anyway, I was watching a video. He was showing me an example of what they have done. So it needs to be subtitled into Tibetan because most Tibetans have no idea what he's saying to start with because of the dialect. And so they need, I said, that's really important to subtitle into Tibetan so that more Tibetans can understand what Rinpoche is saying. Then secondly, I said, English would be good. Then, eventually you want Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. And then I said, if you have time, then someone can do the Vietnamese. But basically, these languages, have significant Dharma populations. Anyway, this one was a short video teaching on Rinpoche gave many years ago. And Rinpoche gave a very interesting etymology for Lama, which we here call Guru. I'm trying to remember what Rinpoche said. So Lama, the normal kind of etymology is, if you follow the spelling, the correct etymology is no higher. Ma is a negation. La is like high, no higher. That's what it means. No one higher than this person. Lama. Which is a little different from the Sanskrit guru. Sanskrit guru means like heavy. So the Tibetans would give a gloss, because the Indians give this gloss, and they say, and heavy means heavy with qualities. So the guru is someone that is heavy with qualities. Rinpoche, in that short teaching, gave what I would call a creative etymology, which is just a play of the sounds. Lama, he says, La is like a life force, which is, it's these two words are related. The La of Lama and the La of life force, like life force, like in Tibetan medicine, and this is different from Sok. Last week I talked about Sok. This is La. La is some kind of almost like soul that can run away. And so people who suffer like the symptoms of like PTSD, the Tibetan doctors will say, that's a case of La has run away. So you need to call the La back. So it's like, so literally, actually, La, it translates to soul. Yeah. So Rinpoche said, the La in Lama is referring to this soul. And the soul is that which animates. And he says, and what animates ultimately is loving kindness. And Ma is mother. And soul mother is what Lama means. And mother is the one who cares. And that's how they are mothers. They care about their children. How do they care? They care for them through their loving kindness. And Rinpoche said, so that's the meaning of Lama. So here, the sublime Guru, Lama, on the crown of your head, engender the perception that the Guru is Buddha and make supplications. So here basically what you have is the fivefold. Briefly on bodhicitta, briefly on the idam. So here it says, so that bodhicitta is what propels you to arise as the idam. And then above your head is the Guru. So 3. Then the next is instructions on natural state Mahāmudrā. The root of samsara's miseries, as well as the source of nirvana's happiness, is this brilliantly lucid awareness, this knowing awareness that is the mind. The Bhagavan has taught this in the Vajra snare of the glorious Vajradakinis. Through meditating, through cultivating this Supreme Buddha, one also awakens as Buddha in this lifetime. There is no Buddha or sentient being apart from this precious mind of yours. The great Brahmin Saraha, who was the preceptor and teacher of the great Acharya Arya Nagarjuna, whom the Bhagavan prophesied as being a reliable being, likewise taught the following: this mind alone is the seed of all, from it existence and nirvana are projected. That meaning samsara and nirvana are projected from this mind. To this precious mind of bodhicitta, the source of everything desirable, I pay homage. There are many other such quotations throughout the Buddha's words and the commentarial treatises that describe how the root of samsara and nirvana is this mind of ours. Just as when water is poured into water and butter mixed with butter, practice leaving alone mind in mind. Habituating this at length, or even just for a moment of mind, is the sole remedy for the three worlds. It is the essence of the exalted body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas of the three times. So to habituate this mind that has been realized as Dharmakaya. And so we looked at those teachings at Lake James, where Gampopa talks about how all conceptualizations should be determined, should be resolved, should be cut. And the literal word is to cut. But the meaning is more, should be resolved, should be determined. You should come to a firm conclusion that all conceptualizations are mind. And this mind is Dharmakaya. And so in that sense, you begin to, if you really follow, if you really train in this way, of course right now conceptualizations are a burden to most of us, if not all of us. Conceptualizations just exhaust us. It's a burden. But if you train in the Mahāmudrā way, you begin to have a new relationship with conceptualizations. Not that you go look for more conceptualizations, but whatever degree of conceptualizations that turn up, that arise, they need not be a problem. In fact, they become the occasion for Dharmakaya to be realized. Because what is conceptualizations? All it is the natural radiance of mind. And what is mind? Mind is Dharmakaya. So therefore it leads to Gampopa saying, Namdo Choku, meaning conceptualizations are simply Dharmakaya. And then after saying that, he says, Namdo Mang, Choku Mang. Mangpo, a lot. The more the Namto, the more the Dharmakaya. So this is also why in the two armors, right? He says, you should not treat conceptualizations as an enemy. You should not despise conceptualizations. Conceptualizations are most kind. Conceptualizations are your teacher. conceptualizations are necessary, and conceptualizations are your companions and friends. In the same way that he talks about physical illness are not to be despised, are not to be abandoned, and that these two are to be recruited for the purpose of more strongly recognizing Dharmakaya. So this particular way of talking, of relating to physical illness and conceptualizations, Namto, in the Drukpa Kagyu is developed into a system of practicing Mahāmudrā, where they call it the six rolled into one. And that's their ronyum, like rolled into one taste. Six korduk, something like that. Korduk, I don't remember what the kora, but druk is six. So it's like the six things to see the single taste of these six. And their illness is one, conceptualizations is one. Then it also like harmful gods and spirits are also one, misfortunes are another one. So 6 areas. So in Drukpa Kagyu, Pema Karpo says, I just learned this yesterday, Pema Karpo says that the way in Drukpa, the way they practice is the co-emergent Mahāmudrā is the view, the 6 single tastes rolled into one. Then the 6 yogas of Naropa is their meditation, and 6 rolled into one is their conduct. Recently, I just got curious, so I told you all on the way to Lake James, I messaged Elizabeth Callahan. I said, Elizabeth, I have a random question. Like, how do Kamsang Kagyu practice Mahāmudrā? Because I just assume, like, well, we Drigung, we have 5-fold Mahāmudrā. I'm sure the other Kagyus have. And then, of course, not of course, but I remember hearing the second Panchen Lama, I think, has a very influential Mahāmudrā text for the Gelugpas. He calls it the Gelug Kagyu Mahāmudrā. And there he says, for the Drukpa Kagyu, they have this 6 rolled into one. And then for he names a few Kagyu, and then Drigung he clearly says, has the 5 aspects, the 5-fold Mahāmudrā. So I was like, I don't know what Kamsang people practice, meaning Kamakagyu. Then she messaged back and she said, actually, we don't have a specific way of doing it. It varies from teacher to teacher. And she said, yeah, sometimes it's not taught at all, not in any explicit way. But she said, these days, there is some effort to have a more clearly Mahāmudrā, kind of a more focused Mahāmudrā. Because even in the 3-year retreat, there's no clear Mahāmudrā, right? Yeah. So I said, oh, that's kind of odd. Then I thought, well, maybe we are odd, to have a specific, 5-fold Mahāmudrā. There, it turns out, I was asking others, and that even in the Drukpa also it's not so common to have a designated Mahāmudrā, like overarching. way of practicing Mahāmudrā. So anyway. Coming back here on page 24. So some of you have been started joining on Monday. So basically our weekday, for those who are able to do it, we are focused on a 14th century Fivefold Mahāmudrā manual. And then this manual is quite clear. They don't have all the things that, not all, but many of the things that are now done. Like finish this with 100,000 this, 100,000 that, the Ngondo. That Mahāmudrā manual don't have things like that. Also, from that Mahāmudrā manual, it seems like there's no finish this section, meaning focus on this section for a few months, and then focus on this section for a few months, and focus on this section for a few months. It looks more like a manual that you just keep going through the cycle again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So from the preliminaries what it calls the general preliminary is just Vajrasattva and Mandala offering. Then special preliminary is bodhicitta as the first of the fivefold path. And then creation stage is idam and guru. Completion stage is natural state Mahāmudrā, and then dedication. And so the other thing that struck me recently is like, so when in the context of Fivefold Mahāmudrā, when it comes to completion stage, there is no completion stage with characteristics. Instead, it's all just completion stage without characteristics, which is the unelaborate, so to say, Mahāmudrā training in shamatha. In the text that we are using for this daily practice, it's a long text. Today we arrive at Vajrasattva. Tomorrow we'll continue to Mandala. In that text, for example, it gives practices to stabilize the mind, for the mind to achieve samadhi. And then from when the mind has enough shamatha, then the pointing out instructions for the mind takes place with the text. The text, and that's, even though it doesn't explicitly call it vipassana, but that is essentially the vipassana that is there. So anyway,
Pointing out comes at the end. Pointing out comes at the end.
Yes, yeah. All along the way, a little bit of pointing out is going on. Today at the end of Vajrasattva, there is some hint there already. So it doesn't come like a mystery novel surprise, with pointing out. Ta-da! All along it's already saying, mind is like this, like this. Now meditate like this. But the explicit, comes. So recently also, like I was saying, in Kamsang, Gyaltsab Rinpoche gave some teachings and oral transmission of this one way. He said, this is actually our Kamsang way of practicing Mahāmudrā. Like the Drigong people have the fivefold, we have this. But then he also said, but this is almost lost in our lineage. He said, we have not been protecting this tradition. And so he said, now maybe it's good to revive this, which is called pointing out the three kayas. And so again, it's there's a manual that you practice this. So it begins with the Nirvana Kaya being pointed out via meditating on Buddha Shakyamuni. Then in Buddha Shakyamuni's heart is Chinrezi as the Sambhoga Kaya. And then the Dharma Kaya is just the pointing out. So, yeah, anyway. Now I'm very curious and kind of occupied with like, what are the other Kyobpas doing? The other Kyobpas are busy with Nyingma practices. That's the short answer. The long answer is like, why? How did it kind of... Just as when water is poured into water and butter mixed with butter, practice leaving alone mind in mind. Habituating this at length, or even just for a moment of mind, is the sole remedy for the three worlds. It's the essence of the exalted body, speech and mind of all Buddhas of the three times. Acharya Arya, this is Nagarjuna, said, I pay homage and prostrate, pay homage and prostrate. I pay homage, pay homage, pay homage and prostrate. Yet how does one praise and pay homage? Who is being praised and who is doing the praising? And this is almost kind of Zen-like koan, Who is being praised and who is doing the praising? Just when water is poured into water and butter mixed with butter, when one's own primordial wisdom is truly seen, this is paying homage. So here, Nagarjuna is saying, when we say we pay homage to the Guru, we pay homage to the Buddha, what are we really talking about? What we're really talking about is the ability to directly see, nature of phenomena and nature of mind. And nature of phenomena and nature of mind has the same qualities. Of course, phenomena don't have knowing awareness, don't have rikpa. But phenomena has the quality of emptiness, lack of inherent existence, which our minds have that. But what our minds have, that phenomena, like inanimate phenomena, don't have, is knowing awareness. One will eventually understand and gain certainty in the meaning of this very teaching by continuously habituating oneself to the samadhi in which you possess such understanding. Your meditative equipoise will grow longer and longer. Your ability to remain steady and even will grow longer and longer. And your post-meditation state becomes shorter and shorter. In other words, whether you're seated or off your cushion, your mind can be maintained. When before long one attains this non-duality of meditative equipoise and post-meditation, in other words, there's no more separation between, now I'm meditating and now I'm getting up and walking around. When those two become indistinguishable, this then is the luminous and blissful Dharmakaya. What need is there to even mention other samadhis? I therefore request you, great meditators, that you always cultivate your own mind. So, you're like, okay, great. Now what, right? So this is the other thing. I think in the first couple of centuries, when this was being, Mahāmudrā was taught, there were no manuals. Doesn't mean that there were no meditation, what we call meditation. Doesn't mean that there were no meditation techniques. There's no like, first you do this, then you do that, then you do that, then you do that. There was, but there were no standard manuals. The teacher gave according to the needs of the student. And even I think there was a reluctance. Not only was there no need to write, but there was a reluctance to write it down. For fear or with the worry that, one, you think, if I get the book, I don't need any more help. Which is what happens today. Give me the book, I'll do it myself, don't need help anymore. That's one. But the other one more is like, no, everyone is different. This is not like assembly line practice. It needs to be modified. And so, no manuals. Until a few hundred years later. So by the time of the 9th Karmapa, he has a really detailed and very helpful actually Mahāmudrā manual called Ocean of Definitive Meaning, where there are 85 plus steps. Now I think how it is used, when it is used, is also a good teacher doesn't necessarily take like a student from like 1 to 85, but modifying it for the needs of the student, not for the likes, for the needs of the student. And so this lack of manual actually is not so surprising. Because if you look at, if you want to be objective, so to say, if you look at the earliest body of Buddhist texts that is said to have been taught by Buddha Shakyamuni, right? Very, very little of, okay, this is what you should do with your mind. Try breathing. And then try breathing through your left nostril or right nostril or whatever. No, there are no instructions like that. You look at the Pali Canon, not all of it is ancient or the most ancient, but a lot of the Pali Canon is the earliest surviving Buddhist text we have. Buddha was mostly kind of doing general therapy. There was no techniques. It was more like he's reasoning with people. What do you think? Where do you think suffering comes from? It was that kind that was recorded. There was very little. I mean, if you read, and then it says, if it ever says anything about meditation or bhavana or cultivation, it's more like this. And then the Buddha came out of meditation. And then he taught this. And it's like, wait. Can you go further back? Between him eating, taking a nap, and meditating, we need some information what he was doing when he was meditating. Silence. Not told. Or he taught and then he fell silent and he meditated. It's like, wait. And what was he doing then when he meditated? Again, no information. Not because they were not cultivating their minds, but quite deliberately they did not write it down. So the Kyobpas also didn't write them down until later. So a lot of these teachings like that, gives you a hint, as to how the mind is, what the mind is like, but then no detail. So one of the earliest manuals in the Ryungkagyu is this 14th century manual, composed by one of the throne holders, the 11th throne holder, who was also Tsongkhapa's teacher. So that's what we are working with.